November 24th, 1971. You are on a flight from Portland to Seattle. 30 minutes, routine. The man in seat 18C has ordered a bourbon and soda. He is about to change everything. He handed a note to the flight attendant. She thought he was flirting. She put it in her pocket without reading it. He said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note." The note said, "I have a bomb. I want $200,000. I want 4 parachutes." She looked at him. He opened his briefcase. 8 red cylinders, wires, a battery. Real or fake, she couldn't tell. Neither could anyone else. He got everything he asked for. He released 36 passengers. He kept the pilots. He demanded they fly south. And then at 8:13 p.m., at 10,000 feet, in a rainstorm, he jumped out of the back of the plane. That was 53 years ago. He was never found. Not $1 of his ransom appeared in circulation. No body, no parachute, no name. The FBI spent 45 years looking and called it the only unsolved air piracy in American history. But in 2023, something changed. The children of a prime suspect came forward with a parachute, a harness, a logbook, found in a storage shed, kept by their mother for 50 years. She waited until she died before they could share it. The FBI took the evidence and then said nothing. And in 2026, the FBI released new case files, files that had been sealed for decades, files that included names that had never been publicly connected to this case, names that make everything we thought we knew wrong. This is the Unresolved, and this is the most complete investigation into D.B. Cooper ever put on this channel. Everything the FBI found, everything they didn't want you to know, and the one question nobody has answered in 53 years. Portland, Oregon. Wednesday afternoon, November 24th, 1971. The day before Thanksgiving, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Portland International Airport. A man walks to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter, pays $18.52 in cash for a one-way ticket, gives his name as Dan Cooper. No ID required. 1971. The FBI description of the man at gate. White male. Mid-40s. 6 feet 1 inch. 170 pounds. Brown eyes. Dark hair, neatly combed. Business suit. White shirt. Black clip-on tie. Remember the clip-on tie. It becomes one of the most important details in this entire case. 1971 was the golden age of hijacking. Over 305 commercial aircraft were hijacked worldwide that year alone. No metal detectors, no baggage x-ray. You bought a ticket. You walked on. Cooper chose this moment deliberately. He had studied the system. He knew exactly where the gaps were. Flight 305 departed at 2:50 p.m. 36 passengers, 6 crew. Boeing 727, the most common commercial aircraft in the world. Cooper chose a 727 specifically because of something about this aircraft that almost nobody knew. Something that would make his escape physically possible. We'll get to that. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper lit a cigarette, ordered his bourbon and soda, tipped his flight attendant, then handed flight attendant Florence Schaffner a note. She assumed it was a man's phone number. She pocketed it without reading it. He waited. Then, "Miss, you'd better look at that note." Schaffner read it, looked up at him. He opened his briefcase just enough. 8 red cylinders, wires, a battery. She later said she wasn't sure if it was real. Cooper later said, "No, it wasn't real." Wait, he said that to someone? We'll come back to that. His demands were precise, $200,000 in $20 bills. He specified random serial numbers, not sequential. He specified 4 parachutes, 2 main, 2 reserve. He specified civilian models, not military. Every specification reveals something about who he was. The plane circled Seattle for 2 hours, while the FBI collected $200,000 in 10,000 $20 bills. Every serial number photographed. The bills were not marked. Cooper specified that. He knew about marked bills. That is not casual knowledge. That is something you know from law enforcement or from criminal experience. 5:24 p.m. Flight 305 lands at Seattle-Tacoma. Taxis to an isolated, well-lit section of the airfield. Exactly as Cooper instructed. The money arrived. The parachutes arrived. Cooper examined both. Then, he released all 36 passengers. Politely, calmly. He even said thank you. Here's what makes this case unlike any other hijacking. It's not what Cooper did. It's what he knew. 5 things he knew that nobody should have known. 5 things the FBI spent 45 years trying to explain. 5 things the 2026 file release made even more complicated. Knowledge 1. The Boeing 727's rear air stair. The 727 was one of the only commercial aircraft in history with an air stair that could be operated in flight. Not public knowledge, not in the manual passengers received. The flight crew later confirmed they were surprised he knew about it. You know about the rear air stair only if you work with this aircraft. Knowledge 2. Civilian versus military parachutes. When the FBI offered military surplus parachutes, Cooper refused. Specifically requested civilian models. Military chutes of 1971. Smaller canopy, different deployment altitude ratings. At 10,000 feet, at 150 knots, a military reserve could fail. A civilian reserve, rated for exactly these conditions. He knew the difference. That's parachute training knowledge, not public information. Knowledge 3. Marked bills. In 1971, invisible die markers and tracers had already caught multiple hijackers. Cooper specified random serial numbers, not sequential. Sequential serials equals easy to trace at stores. He also specified no markings. The FBI had to comply, because refusing might have escalated the situation. How does a civilian know about FBI bill marking protocols in 1971? Knowledge 4. The clip-on tie. He wore a clip-on tie, not a knotted tie. This seems like a minor detail. Parachute instructors, when interviewed by the FBI, explained a conventional knotted tie can catch in parachute harness deployment, can tangle, can choke the jumper, can prevent clean deployment. A clip-on releases instantly under pressure. He chose the clip-on deliberately, and he removed it before jumping. It was the one thing he left on the plane. Knowledge 5. The flight parameters. Cooper told pilots, 10,000 feet, 150 knots, landing gear down, cabin unpressurized, rear air stair deployable. Every parameter serves one purpose: survive the jump. 10,000 feet, below hypoxia threshold, he could breathe without oxygen equipment. 150 knots, minimum safe airspeed, reduces impact forces on jump. Unpressurized means he could open the rear door without explosive decompression. You need aeronautical engineering knowledge to specify all 5 correctly. The FBI's conclusion after 45 years. He was probably not an experienced skydiver. Think about what you just learned, and tell me how those 2 things can both be true. 7:40 p.m. Flight 305 departs Seattle, heading Mexico City. Altitude, 10,000 feet. Speed, 150 knots. Rain, heavy. Visibility, near zero. Outside temperature, -7 Celsius. In the rear cabin, flight attendant Tina Mucklow sat with Cooper. He was calm. He offered her a cigarette. He said, "I do not have a grudge against your airline. This is just something I had to do." At 8:13 p.m. exactly, the flight crew felt it. A change in cabin pressure, the tail buffeted upward. The rear air stair had been opened. Tina Mucklow walked toward the rear. Cooper gestured her back. She went. Nobody saw him go. Not one person on that aircraft saw DB Cooper jump. The jump conditions, -7 Celsius, 100+ mile/hour wind at jump altitude, driving rain, zero visibility, no steering parachute, dense old-growth forest below, no roads in most of the drop zone. He was wearing a business suit, loafers, and he had $200,000 in a canvas bag. The FBI later said, no experienced jumper would attempt this. But here's what the FBI didn't say out loud. If he wasn't an experienced jumper, he couldn't have survived. And if he couldn't have survived, then the case is solved. He's dead in the forest. Case closed. But the FBI kept it open for 45 years because something kept telling them he might have made it. 10:15 p.m. The aircraft landed in Reno, Nevada. FBI agents boarded immediately. Cooper, gone. 2 parachutes, gone. $200,000, gone. Left behind, 2 unused parachutes, a black clip-on tie, and one of the reserve chutes, sewn shut. The FBI called it NORJAK in Northwest hijacking. J. Edgar Hoover personally approved the use of an SR-71 Blackbird to retrace the flight path and photograph the drop zone. The fastest aircraft ever built, chasing a ghost. It made 5 flights. Poor visibility. The photography was useless. 800 suspects in the first 5 years, all eliminated. Over 1,000 total over 45 years, all eliminated. The FBI ran the investigation until 2016, then officially closed it. Their stated reason: redirect resources to other priorities. Not, we solved it. Not, he's confirmed dead. Just, we stopped looking. But before they closed it, one discovery. February 10th, 1980. Brian Ingram was 8 years old. His family was camping on the banks of the Columbia River. He reached into the sand to smooth it for a campfire and pulled out 3 bundles of decayed $20 bills. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom, $5,800 of Cooper's $200,000, found 9 miles from where anyone thought he landed. 8 years after the hijacking. The FBI tested the bills. Then in 2020, diatom analysis. Diatoms on the bills bloomed only in spring. The money didn't enter the river in November 1971. It entered in spring, at the earliest, spring 1972. Someone moved that money after the winter. Someone who was alive after the jump. Over 1,000 suspects in 53 years. I'm going to give you the 4 who never fully went away. And for each one, I'll tell you what convinced investigators and what eliminated them. Because in every case, one detail saved them, and one detail condemned them. Suspect 1, Kenneth Christensen, former Northwest Orient Airlines mechanic, flight attendant and purser. Former World War II paratrooper. He knew the airline, he knew the aircraft, he knew the airports. The year after the hijacking, on a flight attendant's salary, he bought a house. Cash. On his deathbed in 1994, he told his brother, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you." What eliminated Christensen? He was 5 feet 8 inches. Cooper was described as 6 feet 1 inch. That's a 5-inch difference, not something eyewitnesses misremember. But flight attendant Florence Schaffner said, "Photos of Christensen fitted my memory of Cooper more closely than any other suspect I was shown." She could not conclusively identify him. The height discrepancy remains unexplained. Suspect 2, Richard McCoy, April 7, 1972, just 135 days after Cooper. McCoy hijacked a United Airlines Boeing 727. Same demands, same method. He parachuted from the aircraft with $500,000. He was caught. Sentenced to 45 years. Escaped from prison in 1974. Killed in FBI shootout. His DNA did not match Cooper's tie. But in 2023, his children changed everything. In 2020, Richard McCoy's children, Shantae and Rick, reached out to an investigator. They had waited. They waited until after their mother died. She had kept a secret for 49 years. In July 2022, the investigator found a parachute in an outbuilding on the McCoy family property, North Carolina, along with a skydiving logbook. The logbook aligned with the timeline of both hijackings. September 2023. Rick McCoy and the investigator traveled to Richmond, Virginia. To meet FBI agents, the FBI collected the harness, the parachute, the logbook. They said, "Thank you," and nothing else. No press release, no comment on the investigation, no confirmation that the case had been reopened. Just silence. And then, 2026, the FBI released new case files, files that had been sealed and unavailable, filed under FOIA requests that had taken years to process. The files contained new names, new interview summaries, including a former Boeing inspector who had vanished around the same time as Cooper, and a former Maine pilot with parachute training. The files don't solve the case. They prove the case is not as closed as they claimed. The question that defines this case: did D.B. Cooper survive the jump? Not who was he? Not where is he? First, did he survive at all? Because if he didn't, the rest doesn't matter. If he did, everything matters. The case 4. He died in the jump. -7 Celsius, 100 miles per hour wind, business suit, no steering chute, landing in dense old-growth forest at night. One reserve parachute was sewn shut. He may have used that one. No body has ever been found, but the Pacific Northwest wilderness has swallowed bodies before. The FBI officially believed this. When they closed the case, they did not say he survived. They said, redirect resources. The case 4. He survived and escaped. He planned every other detail with precision. The specific aircraft, the specific parameters, the specific bills, the specific chutes. Would a man who planned this perfectly choose to die on the exit? The Columbia River money entered the water in spring, not November. Someone moved it after the winter. Someone who was alive. The Lewis River area, his estimated drop zone, has roads within 6 miles of the forest edge. An experienced paratrooper walks out in one night. D.B. Cooper changed everything, whether he meant to or not. Within 12 months of the hijacking, metal detectors installed in every U.S. airport, mandatory baggage screening, cash buyers flagged for additional screening, the Boeing 727 fitted with a device that locks the rear air stair in flight. It is still called a Cooper vein today. His name is on every Boeing 727 that ever flew after 1972. He also became something nobody predicted, a folk hero. D.B. Cooper Day, celebrated annually in Ariel, Washington, the town nearest his estimated drop zone. They sell Cooper t-shirts, Cooper beer, Cooper playing cards, a Netflix documentary in 2022, at least 12 films and TV series. Why does America love D.B. Cooper? He hurt no one. He was polite. He tipped his flight attendant. He apologized for the inconvenience, and he got away with it. The case is officially closed. The Unresolved disagrees. Subscribe to the Unresolved, because some cases were never closed, some truths were never found, and we're not done looking.